You're listening to the Medic Materials Podcast, hosted by Mike Turek, Emily Yates, Kelsey Coons, and Gerard Cuomo. Each month, we discuss EMS news, medical science, and review actual EMS calls, bringing many educational opportunities to the listener. Portions of the calls have been altered to protect the privacy and identity of all involved.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is the Medic Materials Podcast, and I must bring out one of the best sound bites ever. See if it'll work.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Hopefully we don't get a copyright strike for that.
Good old Bruce Buffer.
Good old Bruce Buffer that sues everybody for using his catchphrases. But I did some heavy darn research into that one, and it should be good. So this is one of the really cool things about me having been relocated from my old house to my new house. I can now, we can live stream a whole lot more, and we started the video podcast a while back for the Patreons. And now we are going to bring the stream and the live show to the podcast. So for everyone watching right now, awesome. Thank you for joining us here on the inaugural Medic Materials Podcast live episode. This will happen every 1st and 15th of every month. Blaine, I cannot afford a lawsuit at all, even with my top hat and monocle from before. But the chats.
Look at that big screen TV of yours, though. Watch out.
I know, right? So we must do our awesome intros. So for the Maha Butchie with us today, without his Sultan hat, but still with the best theme song ever. I swear, it's when the bass gets in there. It's great. So
I enjoy it.
I know it's wonderful. So, Mr. Maha, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
Oh, doing good. Just throwing some food in my face quick,
I know.
Those late shifts.
I mean, you literally got in like 6 minutes before the stream started, so thank you. And Mr. Phil Foundation, how are you, sir?
How's it going?
It's fabulous. Today is one heck of a great day. Do our little head smashing here. So one of the as I was saying, one of the cool things is the regular version of the podcast doesn't change whatsoever. As soon as this stream ends, I'm gonna take it, I'm recording it, I'm gonna, edit it from, into the MP3 version, and then it'll hit all the podcast platforms just like normal. But on the 1st and the 15th, if you guys want to join us, this is the way that you guys can join us and interact with the chat. That's one of the things that I want you guys to do the most is as we go through our call reviews or our discussions, hit us up in the chat. I'm seeing it. You guys are seeing it on the screen. Give us your thoughts, your ideas. What would you do in this case? If you're a follower of the podcast, I ask these guys a bunch of questions. It's one of the coolest things that I can now see your guys' responses as we're going through. So if you guys did notice, we are missing the Gerardo. He's kind of laid up right now with some severe back pain, so he was unable to make it. But I'm sure he's heartbroken that he won't be able to make this episode. But we have our let's see, where the heck is my soundboard here? Oh no, it's not on that page. I have like 5 things of sound. I can't wait for tomorrow because I'm getting my Stream Deck, and it's gonna go right there.
Where the heck is my soundboard here?
And it's gonna be phenomenal. So let's see if I can find it. Apparently, I didn't put it in. Well, that's awesome. This is like, I could have swore that I put in the music for the rig check music, but apparently I didn't. So there's gaff number 1 tonight, everybody. I'll hit myself on the buzzer for that one. But the regular the regular podcast people will be able to hear that because I'll edit it in. But the rig check for today, as we've already stated, today marks the new era for the show. Going forward, all the shows from this point on are going to be live streamed with the traditional MP3 version uploaded to all of the Apples and Spotify's and iHeartRadios and all the most popular platforms you already listen to us on shortly after the live stream ends. We are asking you guys for the continued help in getting us out there and helping us grow with Medic Materials. Share, interact with the stream, share the stream. Make sure if you're watching it, someone else might be interested in it too. So, if you are watching the stream, awesome. If you listen to it later, follow, rate, subscribe to the podcast platform. That helps us grow as well. If you guys are, listening right this second to my voice going out to the stratosphere, you guys could be earning continuing education credit right now towards your next CFR, EMT, or medic research. So I want to, tell everybody the CME Academy, the Medic Materials CME Academy is out there. You can earn CE credit just by listening to this episode as well as past episodes of the podcast. The link is in the description of this video, as well as all the, show notes and the audio stuff. We want to shout out to our newest Patreon, Joshua, and our listeners in Iceland and Alaska, because we just got dumped on here in the Northeast, and I had to, shovel out, 18 inches of snow today. It helps that I have a 40 horsepower, giant tractor, but there was a time when I didn't, and I would actually have to shovel that. So, Mr. Butch, you're talking to everybody in the stream. So what up? Val, how are you? So guys, I bring to you guys a call that I think you guys will be severely interested in. And, and yes, and you know me, I saved the best for Patreon, but this one's close. This one's not Patreon worthy, but it's certainly close. So our system today is going to be a suburban town just outside of a very large metropolitan area. Now, this did not come from New York, so protocols and kind of things were a little screwy. Equipment availability was also kind of screwy. So I think that's going to, lend itself to conversations down the road. The area is serviced by a town municipal ambulance who staffs their ambulance with one EMT basic and one AEMT, or, EMT intermediate for those in New York State. So more or less like ALS light. A lot of them, they can intubate, they can start certain drugs, they can run a cardiac arrest by themselves, but, they can't RSI, they can't do a lot of the other, ALS type medications. If they do require a paramedic, however, there are multiple paramedics in fly cars scattered around the service district, in like satellite stations. So they can always request a paramedic. Hospitals in the area, there's one hospital in the immediate area, a larger community hospital within the ambulance district. It's only about 10 minutes away. And there's also another large urban hospital about 25 minutes away. You guys are going to be dispatched a Delta Priority or Priority 1 to a local apartment complex for a 5-year-old pediatric male, lethargic with altered mental status. Both the paramedic fly car and the intermediate level ambulance are dispatched to the scene. So for those that are new to the podcast, I always pause here and get your guys' thoughts about dispatch information and what you're already thinking. So I'm going to start off by asking you guys your thoughts, in your mind when you get the pediatric call that's dispatched, but then even more so when it's like altered mental status plus lethargy.
Well, everybody,
there's so many things that could cause a pediatric to be altered. Are they hypoxic? Are they, is their sugar low? Did they get into something that they weren't supposed to, like maybe a toxicology problem? So I think the way your assessment goes is a lot different than like an adult altered mental status, especially because, what's altered with the kid. It's not, could they just be not eating? Could they be, just more fatigued than normal? It's, kids are probably the hardest patient to have in the EMS setting.
Yeah, especially like a 5-year-old, typically is not lethargic. There's a reason why this is happening, right? And yeah, it gives you a laundry list of kinds of things. It could be cardiac to respiratory to the moon. Right. So Mr. Maha, what are you kind of thinking in this case?
I think the first thing you think of when you have a PEDS call is everybody's, anxiety goes from 0 to, nth degree right off the bat, even though you have no idea what's going on. I mean, it could be, a first time mom panicking because, Junior didn't get enough sleep last night and now he's just a little tired today, to, a febrile patient or, diabetes, cardiac, respiratory, anything in that gamut. But I think the thing we have to worry about first is our response to the scene, because we're all going to be jacked. The adrenaline's going to be pumping hard right now. So
yeah, and we kind of talked about that in the last episode when we had our pediatrics conversation. That's a typical response, and we don't kind of have those conversations, and we don't have that training in peds to really know when to, how to calm those emotions, because we don't see it all the time. So when we're not exposed to it, our amp level goes through the roof. So the intermediate AEMT level ambulance arrives on the scene while the fly car still has about a 25-minute ETA to the scene. The EMTs grab their first in bag while the intermediate AEMT grabs the cardiac monitor and their ALS light bag. Now, in this case, they are able to do a initial cardiac rhythm. They're not able to do 12 leads, and they can interpret, it's a sinus rhythm, it's a sinus tach, but they can't strap on a 12 lead and say, okay, there's a STEMI. Okay, so that's one of the limitations and weird things from a New York standpoint. So when they grab all their stuff, they stack it on the stretcher, and they go ahead and enter the apartment complex. When they arrive at the apartment, they're let in by mom, who is currently holding her 5-year-old son. She goes on to tell the EMS crew that yesterday her son came home from pre-K saying that his stomach was hurting. He took it easy the rest of the afternoon, not eating that much, but was able to drink some juice boxes. When she put him to bed the previous night, so last night, she noted that he did feel a little warm, but nothing serious. Took a temperature, wasn't, febrile, didn't have a fever. This morning, when she went in to wake him up to get ready for school, he felt super hot and was way more difficult to arouse than normal out of bed. So she decided she's going to do the old mom's trick that really doesn't work, but she's going to put him in the cool bath to try and cool the body down. But became extremely concerned when he wouldn't stay awake in the bath and kept slumping down the bathtub. So this is when she removed him from the bathtub before he drowned and called 911. So with this kind of initial story, where are your guys' thought processes going forward? And do you have a differential that you're going to try and work on?
I mean, belly hurting. Did he fall down the playground? Did he, injure himself on something in the playground? Did he roughhouse too much with kids? Belly trauma, things like that.
Yeah, I think trauma is one of the ones that we kind of don't think about a lot too. Could this be a trauma of some sort?
And now he's leaking into the gut, which is giving the infection, which is blazing the fever.
Right. What about you, Phil?
I mean, kids are just no offense, but kids are just a cesspool for infection. So, one kid gets, playing on the playground, puts his hands in his mouth or something like that. And, there's so many communicable diseases in younger grades that maybe he picked something up that he's not vaccinated against. Could this be maybe a swollen, like an inflamed pancreas, maybe an infection that originates in the abdomen. There's so many things that, definitely do a very thorough abdominal assessment, check for rigidity, any tenderness, if you press on a quadrant, does he wince in pain?
Yeah, I think
stuff like that.
I think that's one of the things that you kind of alluded to before is that assessment is so key in peds. You can't just sit there and go, oh, look, they look fine. You really need to ask your super long laundry list of questions. You need to get in there hands-on and really do a thorough exam on this kid. So,
and I think the problem right now is you're looking at is kids can compensate for so long, and this kid started to look sick. So now we're in that danger zone with this kid. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, they're already altered. So how far down the compensation train did we really go before we got here? Right. So this intermediate AEMT actually does start to do their initial physical exam. And they find that this child is responsive to painful stimuli only, giving slight moans when giving a sternal rub. They open the kid's airway, find no visible obstructions, clear of any fluid or debris. Breathing is rapid with equal chest rise. Rate is estimated to be above 40 breaths per minute. Pulses are present but weakened at the brachial artery. Skin is very pale and super hot. Lung sounds are also checked right at this point in time, which come back clear and equal in all fields. So again, initial assessment, they kind of just went through the ABCs here, threw in some lung sounds as well. What are your guys' next steps, and what kind of questions do you need to be asking mom going forward?
Definitely. What's his normal? How does he normally act? Could he have, not that I'm saying that this is what's causing it, but, could he have a developmental delay where, he's, nonverbal, or, does he have special needs that would impair an assessment for us?
That's, yeah.
What?
Well, not even just impair it, but is his norm different than every other 5-year-old's norm?
Yeah, is he, does he have autism? Does he have, cerebral palsy, stuff like that, where a normal, I'm going to say, because no patient's ever normal textbook wise.
Right.
because they don't read our literature. They
read our
don't say, like,
books.
No.
exactly. But could, or is he maybe immunocompromised where he's super prone to an infection or a bleeding disorder? Like really focus on, use mom or dad or whoever's there as a reference to like, what does he normally do? Like how does he normally act? Is he up, talking, playing with Legos, or does he normally like sit in a chair all day? Like what is his normal?
Right. No, 100%. I think normal, we have to establish baseline normal because realistically, the, responsive to painful stimuli could be normal for this kid. We don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
I still want to know I still want to know what happened yesterday. That caused the initial not feeling well. Like how did that happen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so benign. My belly doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, that could mean millions of things.
exactly. Like that could be, trauma. He could have gotten kicked by a horse, or it could be he ate some, rotten cheese at school that he traded in a lunch, like it just is, it's weird. It's very weird. So
Also find out bowel and bladder habits. Like is he going to the bathroom normally? Like kids should go at his age. Things like that. You gotta watch out for those things too. Like with dark tarry stools, is the urine, that lovely cranberry color we hate to see. Things like that.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Another thing is, does he have, is he, again, like with the developmental stuff, is he, does he wear diapers or anything at, an older age? Could be urosepsis, could be something like that where.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I lost my train of thought. My bad. I was going somewhere and then my brain just shut off. My bad.
He took a left turn and now he's somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm looking for the road signs. I have no idea where I am. I'm halfway in the field now.
Hey, watch out. That's where cops beat people up. That's not a good place to be in the middle of the field. right past the stairwell.
As long as there's less than 5 of them, I'm good.
Oh, man. All right. So, going forward, the primary AEMT is conducting their initial exam. Their partner, the basic EMT, begins to gather a full set of vitals while they do all of this initial stuff. Blood pressure via the manual BP cuff returned as 60/20. Heart rate via the pulse ox probe is 180 with an SpO2 of 86% on room air. They take a full minute to actually count the full ventilatory rate, which comes back as 60 breaths per minute. They do also take a temp via a forehead probe, which shows 103.1 Fahrenheit. So
it's probably like 110, knowing those
I
forehead
know.
scanners.
Those things are, and I don't know, like the crew that sent this in just told me forehead probe. Like they didn't say like if it was one of the zappy ones or one of the, like I'm going to, move it across your face kind of thing.
So now I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Turk, but
No.
how did the mom take his temperature yesterday? Was it the same like forehead scanner or did she have like a rectal thermometer?
So the mom took it via like the old under your tongue glass one, not any of the newfangled ones. So,
Yeah, because I was going to say, he could have been cooking this fever since yesterday.
Right, and no one knows.
Yeah.
So, Butch, is there anything that is kind of, concerning in the vital signs that you're going to address mucho pronto with this kid?
I mean, this fever, we're cooking this fever. This thing could lead to seizures on this kid. I mean, respiratory rate of 60. That's not so good for a 5-year-old. So we need to work on bringing this down. We have to do a blood sugar just to make sure we're not, working on some DKA going on here. You know what I mean?
So this crew is able to do a blood sugar. We talk a lot about blood sugars in this show, and I'm going to say 100% No one on this call does a blood sugar.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, no one. The intermediate crew doesn't do it. The ALS crew that eventually meets them, no one does it. No one.
Anybody get an end title by chance on this kid?
Nope.
You think they'd get an end title if they didn't get a fucking blood sugar?
You suck, you jackass.
Yeah, nothing. Absolutely nothing at that point. So the primary AEMT begins to, speak to mom a little bit more, attempting to gather, some history here. And she tells him that her son has no medical problems, no medical history whatsoever, does not take any meds, and has no allergies to food or meds. She tells them that he eats regularly, except yesterday when he said his stomach was upset. She goes on to say that he was still able to use the bathroom yesterday and doesn't believe that there was any issue with that. However, she doesn't know for sure because he uses the bathroom by himself. He's completely potty trained, just goes in, does his business, comes out. So, she doesn't know. He didn't, say, oh, hey, this is weird. She doesn't believe that he got into anything, like drugs or, anything like around the house, bleach or anything like that. But again, since, she can't know because she was asleep, he might have woken up in the middle of the night and done something. Who knows? But for the, all intents and purposes, we don't really know for sure just yet. So meanwhile, while all this questioning's going on, the EMT basic places him on oxygen, non-rebreather mask, 10 liters per minute. This increases his oxygen saturation from 86% on the room air to 93% on the oxygen. So that's fairly good. The crew asks mom if he uses a car seat. She says no, he uses a booster seat. And the crew then, chooses instead to just secure him directly to the stretcher with the provided seatbelts. They make their way down to the ambulance with mom and then go ahead and they ask dispatch for any update on their ALS fly car unit. Dispatch comes back, tells the crew that their medic is about 7 minutes away. So the crew chooses, okay, well, let's begin the transport, intercept with their medic fly car on the way to the hospital. Cool. We always like when people don't wait. So kudos to them on that one.
Yes.
Unless it's like the last one where they're going in two different directions,
Oh my God, seriously.
That's just a me thing, but
yeah.
I'll meet you tomorrow,
Yeah.
Was,
I'm gonna take the back roads. I'm gonna go backwards and around. I'm gonna go toward the mountains a little bit, and then I'll meet you.
Right, exactly. So
take some scenic pictures. Stop for coffee in Danish. What the hell?
Hey, you don't need me anyway.
No,
you can do an IV and stuff.
Absolutely. So the intermediate EMT connects the kid to the cardiac monitor. Initial EKG they say is a sinus tach with a rate of 186. They also run a blood pressure now via the NIBP cuff, which returns as 57/23. SpO2 remains.
Yeah, I don't like those numbers.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second just to finish this sentence, and then we're gonna unpack that.
My bad.
No. You're good. Kelsey freaking interrupted me all the time. So I got a question.
So I have a question.
So the SpO2 remains in and around 93% while on the 10 liters oxygen. They forego doing any other interventions until the medic arrives, as they can't, like, their protocol limits. They're not allowed to start IVs on peds in their system.
What about IOs?
They are not allowed to start any invasive procedures on peds, IOs, IVs, unless they are in cardiac arrest as an intermediate in their system. So
I know New York State's pretty iffy on that too, with like critical cares and down. It's like you have to call and ask, Mother, may I?
Right.
But,
yeah.
Right. So when you guys already don't like the looks of where this is going, right? We have a really high heart rate. We had a low SpO2. We have a high respiratory rate. We have a really low BP, especially for a 5-year-old, right? And we'll kind of talk about normal vital signs for a 3 to 5-year-old later. But when this paramedic arrives, if it's you guys, what is the first, steps other than assessment that you guys are going to do for this kid? Like, where is
run back to my fly car and take the day off?
Yeah. Should have think to myself, I should have fucking called in sick today.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. You BLS. It's fine. ALS light.
Right.
It's good.
This is BLS. Just
right.
take it. Go.
It's great. It's fine. But go ahead, Phil.
I was gonna say, definitely get some access, get some fluids on board. The normal heart. I know we were talking about earlier, but high end of the normal heart rate for a kid this age is like 140s. So we said what 180, 188,
186
around?
Right now. Yeah, 185,
He's
186.
Yeah, he's definitely tacky. He's hypotensive. You got to try it, even if you don't slow that heart rate down to fluid, even boost that pressure up a little bit. So when that heart rate slows down, like we said, how pediatrics always compensate until they just can't anymore.
Right.
It's not going to tank the pressure as much as it would if you just let him sit.
He's already not compensating. He's decompensating right now. Like, this kid's dying right in front of us.
Well,
yeah, and it's going to get to that irreversible. He's going to become, I'm going to say, sinus, like drop to like the 80s and then down to sinus Brady, and then.
So one of the things that I've kind of been thinking through this whole thing is this. There's, how do I want to put this? Like, damn it, Phil, you made me lose it now.
I'm sorry. You guys always tell me. You tell me I have to talk more. And then now you're telling me to shut the fuck up.
I'm not. I'm blaming you because I lost it. You losing it made me lose it. Maybe it'll come back to me eventually. So we move on. The crew arrives at the intercept location with the paramagician. The medic enters
the hospital, the parking lot, right?
Nope.
With a coffee and a Danish.
Right, absolutely. So the medic enters the ambulance, is given a report on the current presentation of the kid and kind of the history of present illness, that HPI. I don't
think there's much report given. He was looking and go, oh shit, and then just go away.
Yeah, like I need to work here.
The minute I would walk into the rig and open those back doors and see the monitor and the kid, I'd be like,
yeah, we're good.
Just be quiet. I'm good. Drive.
Let's just go.
Drive faster. Must drive faster.
Drive faster.
Maybe break some speed laws. I need you to shit at a hospital like yesterday.
Right.
Use all the everything woos you got. Let's go now.
All the woos. So the they give this full report and everything, and the medic tells the EMT basic who's driving, just go. Just like let's go. And they tell them to head to the large urban hospital, not this community hospital. Yes.
Yep.
Now, the community hospital is 2 minutes from where they intercepted. The large urban medical center is 20 minutes from where they intercepted. However, they choose this, and they said to me, because I didn't know anything about these hospitals, they said that the urban center has a large pediatrics department, like a PICU and everything, where the closer hospital, they kind of like, if you bring a ped there, they'll dabble, and then they kind of send them off to the other hospital anyway. So I think, in all, good decision.
Very appropriate.
Yeah. Even with a really sick kid, it's still appropriate. So they begin the transport, and the medic began to get their equipment ready for starting an IV. They're like, yep, we need to fix the fluid problem, right? Bring this heart rate down and this blood pressure up. It's at this time that the patient began to have full body tonic-clonic seizure-like activity. The medic goes ahead with their IV attempt, one attempt to the left AC, instead of just grabbing their Versed and hitting them IN or IM. They try and get the line, and because, we all suck at this, they miss.
No,
Of course they do.
So kids still seizing.
On a floppy fish, you miss the IV.
Stop, right? Like, what? Unimaginable. Oxygen saturations are falling now to 81% while still on the non-rebreather. And the medic thinks to themselves, okay, hey, I'm not going to be stupid a second time. And I'm going to, not do another IV attempt, but I'm going to administer my Versed IM this time. So they calculate their dosage. Their protocol says 0.1 mgs per kg. The kid's roughly about 20 kilograms, so they drop 2 milligrams, administer the Versed intramuscularly. Thoughts for you guys thus far?
I would have IN'd that kid.
Yeah, intranasal would have.
Yep.
So
Butch and I have had this conversation where not only is it, going to work faster intranasally, it's also a crew safety. You have a kid that's in active seizure and your adrenaline's already spiked through the roof. You're not going to be able to keep your hand still, only one wrong move and that's going into your hand.
Yeah. So I'm kind of with you guys. Like I love intranasal Versed. I love it. I use it all the time.
I'm old school. We used to be able to do PR that,
Right. Yeah. And I worked in a system where they were given rectal Valium, not Versed, but Valium for seizures. And you'd have to roll them over and, and that's what it was. But yeah, I love the intranasal. Like, I use it, I've used it for like intranasal fentanyl, and it just doesn't work as well for me, but the Versed works phenomenal. The benzos intranasally work amazing.
We got all the capillaries right there, right in the nares, like right there, right to accept, the meds. It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm posing this to the chat. I'm going to pose it to you guys. Do you guys have a differential that you're running off of for this kid right now?
I'm leaning more towards the septic febrile. I would love to have a blood sugar, but someone decided, yeah, it's all right.
Now, now hold on. What makes it
fuck it?
What makes it worse? And if Emily was here tonight instead of at work, she would be having a cow. But they didn't get it because the kid was altered. They didn't get it because we all suspect some form of sepsis. And then they also didn't get it post a seizure. So they had 3 opportunities to not suck. And
you suck, you jackass.
They still sucked. Like
for me, if I go to a pediatric call and the minute someone says, yeah, he's not really acting himself, boom, that's automatic. Take the kid's sock off, poke him in the heel of the foot, get a blood sugar.
Right.
Because one, that's an assessment tool. I find anything that I can fix, boom, there you go. If it's normal, okay, that rules out some things, Even with sepsis, one of the findings is an elevated blood sugar because your body's trying to fight the infection.
Right.
I still like a blown out stomach. I think he did something, playing and maybe ruptured his bowel or something. And
So
and now it's a fight on 2 fronts now.
Right. There could be leaking. It could be, perf bowel, which now you're going to get septic because of that. Or maybe, he's got a tiny liver lack and he's bleeding into, like, who knows, and he's just bleeding. One of the things that it was brought up in the chat, Val brought it up. Did they expose the stomach? Was there bruising, tenderness, or rebound? Rebound pain? And no, they did not. So
of course they didn't.
There's another fail that I didn't even write in. when I was, sitting here writing this, I'm like looking at, oh, nope, they didn't do that, but I never mentioned it. So awesome that the chat brought that in.
Did they even palpate it or no?
No, they didn't touch it. There was nothing because he wasn't complaining of it. Now it just goes out the window,
And
But-
I think right now is that point where everybody's at panic mode.
Yeah.
Because this kid's crashing right in front of him. Now he's seizing, pressures are dropping, SpO2's dropping, and everybody's in panic mode. So now they're just thinking, shit, get to the hospital. Not, you know what I mean?
Right.
They're
Right.
at that mode.
Yeah. And that's
They were already at panic, and now they're hyper panic, and now it's just like,
Is the AEMT in
Nobody's
the back with the medic, or
the
is it just the medic alone?
Nope, the AEMT is with the paramedic in the back. The BLS EMT is driving. So at least
they
they got
crash
help.
and hit a train, and you don't know.
Welcome to the surprise Patreon episode.
You all owe me $5 to be a donut. So about a minute and a half, 2 minutes after the admin of the Versed, the seizure activity begins to slow and then stop altogether. Awesome. Mom goes ahead, in her freaking panic mode, tells the crew that her son doesn't have any history of seizures. Like, this is not normal. Medic rechecks vital signs. Blood pressure via the NIBP cuff goes up a little. It goes up to 65/33, but we all kind of expect that, being the fact that they just had a seizure, right?
Yeah.
Heart rate, though, comes down to 160. Sinus
good.
tach still on the monitor. Respiratory rate also has decreased from in the 60s to now spontaneous in the 40s. Oxygen sats tank to now 78% on the 10 liters oxygen. So
Take them off the non-breather and just bag them.
bingo,
Yeah.
agreed. So
Absolutely, 100%.
this is one of those where kids are gonna, kids are respiratory in nature when they code. This kid's heading that direction, right?
You have to prevent it as much as you can.
As quickly and as aggressively as you can, 100%. So
Get a BLS airway in there at least right now while you can, and then start bagging. Yeah.
yeah, and at this
Have
point,
the AEMT bag and
yeah, I think like the BLS airway, the kid's more or less unresponsive, I'm sure, after the seizure. Why not? Have at it, give it a whirl, right? And this AEMT, this intermediate, does exactly that. They grab their bag valve mask, their nasal airways. They place the nasal airway successfully on the first try, and they begin to assist the patient's already tachypnic rate. Like I said, it's now in the 40s, spontaneous. And they're kind of breathing with them, throwing in a couple extra breaths here and there, but trying to stay on that 3 to 5 seconds. Heart rate is starting to now fall into the 50s while all this is going on, right? Medic again attempts a IV, this time to the right AC. Again,
fuck the IV. Just
unsuccessful.
Drill
Just
this
drill 'em.
kid.
This kid's way too sick for you to be fucking poking him with all these needles. His vasculature is shot. Just
His blood pressure is not supporting, a good vein to poke at. Get some fluids
Exactly.
into it before you try to stick a vein.
Maybe.
and I mean, a lot of people throw the excuse of, well, it's it's barbaric. It's
So is the
that
dead
we
kid.
don't want exactly. I explain to the mom, I have to do this to save your kid's life.
No,
And-
100%. This is one of those cases where, even if this is a system that you're not allowed to drill a ped without doc's permission, this is one of those quintessential times where you call a doc and you say, hey, yo,
did
doc,
this.
sorry.
All right, Doc, here's what we're going to do now.
Right, exactly. Like, hey, as I'm getting it out, the phone's on my shoulder, and I'm like, yep. Hey, doc. Yep. Everything's connected. Yep. Hey, I'm gonna do this. All right, cool. Like as I'm hanging up.
Or I mean, even I know it's not recommended, but it's that ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Like, I'm sure, maybe a little sit down with your medical director is better than being pulled in front of, a whole committee of doctors saying, why didn't you do this?
Yeah.
And if you use the excuse, oh, well, I didn't want to waste time calling. that's not going to work out too well for you.
No, it's not.
It's better than mom picking out coffins.
Yes.
It's exactly. I'd much rather risk my card to know that this is going to help my patient than worry about the logistics of having to call, a medical control, get an order, and, knowing our luck, it'll be a fucking first-year resident who's never spoken to a medic before and ask you, thousands of questions. Oh, well, have you been trained to do an IO? Then, we could just do what Butch does and
give me your attending.
Yeah, put your dad on the phone.
Give me your dad.
Put your parents on the phone. This is big boy conversation.
But I mean,
I have been known to do this before.
Yeah,
I was a witness for multiple of them.
We all have, and it's one of the things that gives me joy when I call the doc. Like, you can hear, like, yep, nope, you are bypassed. See you later, goodbye. Yep. I need somebody at a higher level than you.
In
the
our
minute
area,
there's number starts with 1.
And you're like, just give me your attending.
Yeah, we're good here.
Up the food chain.
So, I kind of want to get your guys' like overall thoughts so far, and like, how do you think this call is going overall? Like,
horribly.
How so? Like,
I think they started off trying to do the right thing. And then they realized this kid is way worse than they thought he was, and then everybody just went and now it's just it's in that shit storm, that quicksand tunnel just going down the drain, and it's not good now.
Do you think that we've kind of talked about it before on the show, in that like when providers don't know what to do, they kind of just fixate on a task that doesn't really matter? Do you think that the medic kind of fixated on the IV as, okay, well, I don't know what else to do. I have to do this, so I'm just going to fixate on it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something to kind of think about in the back of our heads,
I mean, yes. Does the kid need the fluids? Does he need, a route for medications in case shit goes south? Yes. But there's, other things that you got to fix, the seizure, the respiratory rate dropping, the SpO2 dropping, all that other stuff.
Yeah. There's so many different little aspects of the call that I think were either handled completely inappropriately or just missed. It was a missed opportunity. So we're almost through. We're very close.
Now,
short transport time. I like it. What's up?
I know the kid can't tolerate Tylenol, but did they put a couple cold packs like under the arms, by the groin, face, to try and cool this kid off a little bit, or no?
What do you think?
I'm going to say no.
No, of course not.
I mean, I had to bite my tongue. I was going to say that they put the kid on ice, but that makes me sound like a horrible person, so.
We're working on that right now.
He'll be up next to the hospital, but,
So, the AEMT continues to bag this kid. Saturations do increase with the assisted ventilations. They're able to bag this kid all the way back up to 94%. Phenomenal. Like
but are we still at that 40 rate though, or are we trying to bag his rate down?
So they're in like the 50 to 55 range. They're not bringing him down. They're kind of just, like I said, staying with that 40 because he's spontaneously breathing on his own, but also because they're amped, I'm sure, they're throwing extra ones in there, right? Which I'm sure isn't helping the gastric distension,
that's
problem.
already going on.
Right, so they get him back up to 94%. The heart rate also increases from around the 150 range all the way back up to 175. Still sinus tach on the monitor. Again, ventilations are counted in the high, mid to high 50s. So,
do you have a question?
Yes, Phil. So you have a question.
I do.
You forgot to say, so I have a question.
So I have a question.
There you go.
And I probably ought to know the answer. Did they do a 12 lead?
Did I tell you they did a 12 lead?
You know, Derek, you're really hurting my heart here a little bit.
You know, I don't leave anything out of these things, guys. Like, if I don't read it, it didn't happen. Just saying. So the because it's a short transport time, thank goodness for this kid. The crew arrives at the hospital. They unload the kid into the ER, where the staff places the IO because they're like, fuck this. We're just going to IO this kid. And the docs there also decide to RSI this kid, which they end up performing successfully after a fluid bolus. And then ultimately he's admitted later on that evening. And the only update that I have for you guys is he was admitted to the pediatric ICU for sepsis. I don't know what caused the sepsis, but that's where this was going. You know, with the fever and with all the other signs and symptoms, we kind of assumed that this was where this was going. At least I think us three did. There were a couple people in the chat that were like, yo, this is screaming sepsis. But, you know, I always, you know, after all these calls, I always ask, you know, overall, from start to finish, how did that go? Like, I think I'm really glad that the kid held on as long as they did.
Yeah.
And I think that they missed so many opportunities, it became more and more dangerous. I would have really liked to have seen them put in, you know, tibial plateau IO on this kid early on.
Yes.
As soon as the medic got there, boom, give him fluids, you know, like,
Boom.
and
Oh.
then try and, you know, increase that pressure. Increasing that pressure is then going to decrease the heart rate. And
If he'd done it soon enough, it may have helped. Not a lot, but, you know, some fluids may have cooled him down a little bit, you know, kept him from seizing.
right,
Plus, he would have access for the Versed when he did seize.
right, you know, and these
Yeah,
are the.
I think.
Go ahead, Phil.
No, go ahead, Tarek.
I was just gonna throw in there, like, there are systems out there that have, you know, IV, you know, antipyretics, Tylenol, you know, ibuprofen, and they can do it IV, right? Our system doesn't allow that. New York doesn't allow that. But there are other states that do. And, you know, they're written into the sepsis protocol. Like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to give, you know, X amount, you know, IV Tylenol. I want you to give fluid, and I want you to also start this antibiotic. I think, you know, like, that's aggressive and awesome and really could have done some significant help for this kid. Just a thought.
Yeah, the thing that, you know, bothered me a little bit was the IV attempts. Like, in school, they just said, you know, if you ever have to get access on a kid, it's probably bad enough to just do an IO and leave it. You know, kids' veins are very fragile. This kid is, you know, shit on the look test and everything like that. I mean, I would have, had he seized, I would have given him the Versed IN and then just done an IO, not even worry about, you know, dicking around with poking the kid twice.
No, and, you know, again, we talked about it last show in that we don't see these kids. We don't see sick kids all the time. And how often do we realistically practice IVs on peds? We
Not
don't.
very often at all.
We
Not very
don't.
often. You do your end of the year turnaround and that's it.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, I mean, what really practice-wise did you do? You know, they don't bring a pediatric arm to paramedic school. You practice on the same arm that you would.
Over and over and over.
Right. You know where they're, you know how that's going to go.
Yep.
Kids are tough.
When you see the skin all torn up, you're like, oh, I'll just go there. Oh, look at that. I got flash.
Yeah, bingo.
The red food colored water is coming back. Look at that.
Dude, and not even that, but like, you know, my paramedic program, there were times where we had red fluid, and then there were times where the red fluid didn't work, and they were just like, Yeah, that looks like you're in. You got flash.
Yeah.
I could
Can you
have been.
flush it? Boom, perfect.
Yeah, I could have been, a mile away, putting it in somebody's eyeball. Hey, yeah, you're in. You're gold. How is that helpful? It's the way we practice with peds is abysmal. It's really sad. So we're not prepared for when these really sick kids show up on our doorstep and we're like, oh my God, they're really sick. Oh my God, they're going to crash on me. What should I do?
And I mean, even in school, since I'm fresh out, quote unquote, they would always tell us, you have a sick kid, just beat feet to the hospital. Do this if you have the time or if you can. Not, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, and again, how is that helpful? Exactly, I get it. EMTs, they should be taught, okay, you have a really sick person, you need to beat feet to the ER. But paramedics should be taught the opposite. Hey, you have somebody with, 10 on 10 toe pain and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, beat feet to the hospital. Just get back in service. But if they're really sick, take some time on scene or in your truck to stabilize that patient before you actually start transporting. We have the ability to stabilize in place.
Yes.
Take that opportunity if you're a paramedic. If you're an EMT and you're over your head, yes, rapid transport, beat feet to a paramedic or definitive care.
Exactly.
But as a paramedic, we shouldn't be doing that. I'm not saying stay there for an hour, but you can sit there for 15 minutes, get a cardiac monitor, get a blood glucose, get a full set of vitals, start your fluid resuscitation, then move them out of the house. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think, most of my pediatric calls were, I got experience from the call. You get a relatively sick kid because I'm just a, fucking black cloud, apparently.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I do what I can, refer to the protocols, the textbook of the interventions and stuff, get them to the hospital and then sit down and have a conversation with the doc. Hey, what else could I have done? What should I expect to see, with this? But, 90% of medics are just oh, a sick kid. I'm no pediatric doc. Let's get him to the hospital.
Right.
Fire medics. Sorry.
Oh.
I had something in my throat.
Ouch. Damn.
Sorry.
In closing here, I just want to, hit a couple of the educational facts that I, scratched down here for this episode. One being, the statistics around how severe sepsis really is, right? I think, at least in the EMT realm, I think the paramedic program does a fairly okay job in saying sepsis is really bad and we need to take it seriously. I think,
especially when they. Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, Derek.
No, you're fine.
Especially that textbook, hypotensive, tachycardic, because they're already working their way towards the irreversible.
Right. I think where the education really falls flat is at the EMT level. There is one page on sepsis in the EMT book, and that's it. And that needs to change. That needs to have a drastic change. So sepsis by the numbers, 1 in 5 die worldwide from sepsis.
Ow.
1 in 5 worldwide die of sepsis, right? 1.6 million cases of sepsis just last year in the United States. 1 million of those 1.6 were hospitalized cases.
Wow.
270,000 of those 1.6 resulted in the death of the patient last year alone. This one, and these two next ones blew my mind. You are 8 times more likely to die if diagnosed with sepsis while in the hospital. Like,
What?
that blew my
Holy
mind,
fuck.
right? This one's even more scary.
That's why I don't go to the hospital. There you go.
Right? This is why old people are scared of going to the hospital. They're in
If I ever
the
get
know.
a
kill you
fever, just
there.
fucking leave me at home.
Like,
Let me die in peace.
they're not even
They're gonna,
joking
they're
when
gonna
they're
kill
like,
you there.
exactly. So this one is even more scary. 1/2 of all of the deaths counted for United States hospitals are due to sepsis. You go to the hospital, you're 8 times more likely to die because of sepsis. And you're half of every death, all the deaths in U.S. hospitals are due to sepsis. That's bonkers, right? So we really need to put a focus on understanding the markers for sepsis. If you feel like you have a patient that is showing signs and symptoms that they could have a possible, infection of some sort, you should be looking for sepsis markers. There's 6 of them in total, 5 of which we can actually determine in the EMS setting. Temperature changes, whether they're hot or cold, right? They could be hyperthermic like this kid was, or they could be hypothermic. And
Sepsis.
And I heard, like, generally if they're hypothermic, usually they've worked through that fever part and now they're on the backside of that.
Verge of succumbing to the infection.
Right, exactly. So cold sepsis is worse.
Yep.
The tachycardia, right? Any heart rate over 100 beats per minute, at least at the adult level. Kids, it's dependent on age. Hypotension, anything, below that 100 systolic. Hyperglycemia. So remember to check blood sugars if you think that it could be sepsis.
What? Stop.
And why are
Blood sugars? Nah.
No. And why are they going to be hyper or high glycemic? Phil, you want to take this so I don't have to talk some more?
That's all right.
Okay, go ahead.
So they're hyperglycemic because their body's working their body's producing energy to help fight the infection.
Bingo. Right?
Which cells are kicked into overdrive, which causes them to dump glucose to help
Glycogenesis
power
is going
that.
on, all that fun stuff.
Bingo.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Doc.
Bingo. Right? So
Not hocking through
hyperglycemia.
again.
The altered mental status, right? The altered mental status is a big one, right? And so that's 5 of them. The temperature change, high and low, tachycardia, hypotension, hyperglycemia, and the altered mental status. If you have 3 or more of those 5, treat and call a sepsis alert because they are probably septic, right? The 6th one that only the hospitals can treat, but we get exposed to it if we're doing patients out of like nursing homes and stuff where we have paperwork, is elevated white blood cell counts. So that just, that's blood work finding. If you get a packet of paperwork and it's like, oh yeah, they have an elevated white count of, 4 million. It's like, oh, okay, well they have the presence of an infection. That would be a marker. We don't typically see a lot of that, but just keep it in the back of your mind, right? Pediatric causes of sepsis. The numero uno reason why kids get sepsis is pneumonia. They at least listen to lung sounds. That's great. But if you can rule out pneumonia, there's got to be something else. So maybe it's that perfed bowel. Maybe they ate something and they got a worm somewhere or a viral thing somewhere. Kids are petri dishes of grossness. It's vile how many times they get sick.
Especially at that young age, they put everything, they don't know any better. They put shit in their mouth, they're touching everything. They don't wash their hands.
Exactly, right? We kind of talked about it, right? Phil, you brought it up a lot, that compensated versus decompensated, right? Where that, when you start to see that blood pressure tank and the patient become altered, you've already gotten into decompensated shock. right? So
And
even
the only place to go from there is irreversible.
exactly
If you don't fix it.
bingo. So interventions must be done rapidly here. You have to attack this. And, like we all think, oh, okay, well, they're altered and, their pressure's like 96 systolic. They're not that bad because their heart rate's only like 120. And,
Only 120. It's all right.
but how many providers that you guys know would be like, yeah, they weren't that bad because they don't really,
a ton of them.
they don't see, those little things as being, oh crap, they're in decompensated shock. Like that's really bad. Where like one of us might come in and be like, oh man, they're decompensating already. I have to take this a little bit more aggressively,
Yeah. My biggest thing is, especially with the nursing home in the district that Butch and I work in, that I know we joke around about it a lot, but like that pungent UTI odor. For me,
Yummy.
that's a marker. There's obviously an infection. So if they have that and like an elevated blood sugar, or if they have that and if they're tachycardic, then I'm going to start, my sepsis treatment and then, rule some other stuff out.
Yeah.
And, I get shit from nurses all the time. Like, oh, well, he's not septic. Why'd you do fluids and all this? Well, you know what? Next time I just won't put an IV in.
All you got to do is say a couple words. They're coming from so-and-so.
Yeah, they're coming from X facility. Oh, okay.
Okay, we got you there.
Why are they half dead and drooling? Oh.
Yeah, this is where they live.
Yep.
They were fine 10 minutes ago.
Right.
They gave them their medication. Meanwhile, they're, sitting in the recliner like this.
So
You go to roll them over out of bed and they just...
so
did yesterday was have to do levo on. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, and that's it. Like, sometimes we just have to treat aggressively and that's okay.
I called the doc. Said, Doc, I'm doing this because of this. Okay, well, continue with fluids too. Oh, no shit,
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
Well, thanks, Doc.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so very much.
Okay, bye.
I'd much rather be told that I'm treating too aggressively than ever be told you didn't do something.
Right, you didn't do enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to touch base too a little bit. You talk about the altered mental status, and I think sometimes providers have a hard time with where that line is. Like sometimes you walk in, and even if the kid, like for a child, but for an adult too, like you did a whole thing about AVPU,
Yeah.
and I kind of joked around a little about that. But if they're acting like a little confused, a little bit, that's a little altered. I'm not too worried about that right then. But when they're lethargic, not talking to me, unresponsive to painful stimuli, that's when altered becomes a problem.
Yes, agreed. There's definitely levels of bad in how altered they are. Yeah, 100%. So the last thing that I was gonna talk about was just normal vital signs. I'm not gonna go through all of the vital signs for all the kids. I did a YouTube video on that. Go to Medic Materials YouTube, you could find it. But specifically for that preschool age kid, that kid that we were dealing with today, that 3 to 5 year old, 3 to 6 year old, respiratory rates should be somewhere between 20 and 30. This kid was 40 and above, 40 to 60 the entire call, right? Heart rate should have been anywhere between 80 and 120 normally. They were 180s, right? So we were definitely super tachycardic with this kid. Blood pressure, systolic blood pressure should have been anywhere in the 80 to 110 range. And we were 60s and 50s. Now, one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough is you can calculate hypotension in kids, where that number should be. And if it's lower, be like, oh, okay, yep, that's hypotension, right? So if you take the equation 70 plus their age in years and multiply it by 2. So age in years times 2. Add that to 70. So this kid, their hypotension calc would have come out to 80. They were 5 years old. Multiply that by 2. That's 10. 70 plus 10 is 80. So anything less than 80 systolic would be considered hypotension for this kid, right? And we can use that for kids to know, like, okay, is this neonate hypotensive? Is this 9-year-old hypotensive? I just don't think it gets talked about enough. I think, I think I'm going to even start teaching this to my EMT students because
So how do you do that in months though? Like if he's 3 months old?
I don't know if it goes down to months.
I mean, I get it if it's a year, but
right.
Months, it's kind of difficult.
Like that might be like neonate resuscitation type stuff that I didn't research for this.
There is an app. I'm gonna look to see if they have it. It's called MD Calc, and I know they have a bunch of like calculations that you can pick. I don't know if they have like a neonate one,
right?
But I'll look real quick. And
so is there anything else as we wind the show down that you guys just kind of want to touch base on? Any last thoughts for our over conversation today? Which, while he's looking that up, I'll go to you.
Well, I like I said, I think you touched on it the last episode, and just again here, yes, kids can make you panic, but you still have to take your time, think through what you need to do for this kid, make them, and do what you can to make this kid better. I mean, yes, they're scary, but you got to do stuff. I mean,
yeah,
take your time, think about it, work through this kid. But you do have to act with some speed too, especially when they get to this kid's level. You have to work with some speed, but you just can't panic and be like, "Oh, that's it. Let's go to the hospital. I'm done."
Right.
And I can't do anything else.
And one of the things that I wanted to address, I just kind of look back at the chat. Now that we have a chat, I have to remember that it's actually there. But one of the things that was brought up, a question, could a sneaky trauma can that cause sepsis? Absolutely. Depending on what the trauma does, you have different, toxic fluids in your body, like bowel fluid and, stomach fluid and stuff like that, that if that, stuff gets out into the bowels or into the abdominal cavity and out into the rest of the body, it 100% can cause sepsis. Trauma, if you get a piece of shrapnel that's, thrown into your body, that has diseases on it, that could cause sepsis and an infection. So yeah, absolutely. Trauma is not one of those things where you're just like, oh, it's trauma, it can't be an infection. It absolutely 100% can. People can get an open sore. That's technically trauma, but then they wind up with, sepsis because the sore gets infected and, it lets stuff in and it's terrible and gross. Phil, did you find what you were looking for?
no, so they do have like a pediatric hypotension guideline, but it's really just, it can only be used for children aged 1 to 17.
Gotcha.
And so it only works with patients a year up.
So I will look into it, and I will, if I find something, I will make a post about it and put it up on the Facebook page and Instagram and stuff like that. As one of the daily posts. Is there anything that you just kind of wanted to, end with, Phil, before I wrap up tonight's show?
My thing is, like talking about access on a kid. Like I said before, yes, an IO, it's brutal for even an adult, but sometimes that's all you're able to get. And if the kid needs it, then, tell the mom, like, hey, just so you know, this is what I'm going to have to do.
Right.
Yes, it looks brutal. Like, I know a lot of agencies, they don't have the easy IO drill. They have the jam sheeties, which, which looks horrible to a parent when you're sitting there grinding a needle into the kid's bone. But
if that's the only way, that's the only way. Like, it's just,
I'm not going to sit there and poke this kid 5 times,
No.
trying to get access where I can when I can just, take a bigger needle out and push it through. And if the parents tell the hospital or anything, this medic abused my kid.
Yeah.
It's helping them.
Right. Again, it's better to, cause a little bit of pain and save a life and do something that, is beneficial than mom picking out caskets, as the Maha said earlier.
I think it's that teachable moment with mom, just like, Mom, listen, I need to do this. It's going to be very beneficial to your, to Junior here, because if I don't do this, Junior's going to be in a very bad way.
Right. Exactly.
And
exactly.
take it out and show them. Take it out and show them, this is what is going to be, in the bone. This is how, you put it in.
I wouldn't even go that far. I would just say this thing right here, it's going in his leg. I need to do this for fluids, or else he's not going to be with us much longer. That's what I'm doing. Poof, and be done with it.
Yep.
You don't need to go into like a 3-hour dissertation with what you're doing. You just do it, and then afterwards you can have a chat with mom when the kid starts feeling better.
Yep. Absolutely. So awesome, guys. Thank you for all the wonderful information. Guys, as always, thank you for joining us on the podcast here. We officially ran over 17,000 downloads on the podcast. It's going to be great now that we have the video. You guys, put a bunch in the chat tonight. Thank you again for that. Again, this should be going up on all the streaming, like podcast networks shortly after the show here. And we will see you on the 1st of the month. But if you're interested, we also do a Friday night live stream every single Friday called End of Tour Live. It's with, the 4 of us. Emily, I think, is going to miss this week, but she'll be there next week. And it's just, it's a ball of fun. We kind of touch on some, serious topics, but it's a lot of fun. Kind of just, ease out of the week, the hard week of EMS. And, just having, a good old time with, good friends, and then, the chat makes it all that much better. So check us out on that. And, again, don't forget to check out the podcast on all of the streaming networks. You can see all the, old ones, as well as the Medic Materials CME Academy, where you guys can, get good, CE credit. So, till next time, guys, thank you. Stay strong. And I guess since Gerard's not here, I will lead us out and do the pediatric kids donuts.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you'd like more information on the podcast or to send us a call to review, visit medicmaterials.com/podcast. To learn more information, like us on Facebook at Medic Materials EDU, or watch our weekly instructional videos on the Medic Materials YouTube channel.